The rule of show business is if it's the first week of my album release and you are saying either my name or my album title, you're helping.
First of all, let's begin like this. After being pleasantly shocked by Taylor Swift's literary prowess over and over in the past 5 or 6 years, this humble author actively spent days in anticipation for October 3rd, which eventually led to a sense of hollow disappointment by the end of the first listen to The Life of a Showgirl. I expected a grand, orchestral exposition of fame and show business, and the duality of all the beauty and treachery coexisting in that world. Then I was presented with an entirely different, bland, and somewhat morally flawed body of art, in which the visual perfection of the album covers failed to seep through to the actual songs. What a disservice to all the showgirls whose aesthetics were borrowed, but whose souls were not depicted. In short, this time the mirror ball failed to reflect these characters in a good light. On this video, I want to focus on my opinions on the moral aspects of this album's songwriting more than anything else. Am I in the wrong? Were my expectations in the wrong? You tell me. Being in awe of the poetry in Clara Bow, I assumed that the last song of the Tortured Poets Department was her trying to structure the next era and essentially introduce the audience to its themes. I thought she would dwell more on the glory and the loss that follows stardom, on the cruelty of constantly being reduced to your perceived superficial beauty, like a showgirl would, than tying it all to the internal struggles of modern women. What happened in reality was a tasteless, incoherent splash of these concepts. I must say, she very obviously tried to subvert these expectations at times and reiterate the classic story of a sad showgirl, this time with a happy ending. But honestly, even that was poorly executed. Apparently, this is a conclusion that many others have reached to as well, not just me. When questioned about this, she actually had to say a very anti art statement. The critiques were just numbers in her bank account. I guess now capitalism is a beast on all fours, demanding more, gnawing at the originality and quality of art. What I find appalling and frankly infuriating about this statement is that she, the proud owner of many great bodies of art, should not be the one to take this stance. Let's say it this way. She has over and over again tried to distinguish herself from a certain reality TV star. Some may say her nemesis, because she perceives that person as morally wrong. Well, by its core, Kim Kardashian's entire public persona and financial policy relies heavily on turning infamy into millions. Over the years, the Kardashian factory has produced nothing but trash and has benefited greatly from it. This statement simply depicted a capitalistic anti-art similarity between these two public figures in my mind, and could only lead me to one revelation that I had blissfully ignored before. It seems that Taylor Swift's sense of morality in songwriting is no different from that of a schoolgirl. Those who bully me are wrong, those who stand by my side are right, and I have absolutely no opinion on the rest. She is my nemesis, not due to the differences in our core values, but because she hurt me. Obviously, Taylor Swift herself is a very intelligent, capable woman, but this is now the state of her songwriting. And I, an adult listener, cannot relate to this type of storytelling anymore. Through the lack of a moral compass, the narrator can easily act like her nemesis, and this is what I found fundamentally wrong with this album. Not just a lack of artistry, but a lack of characteristic core values as well. Let's dive into the songs. I actually enjoyed the first four, both thematically and musically, but still there were a few issues here and there, in my opinion, of course. Regarding the first song, Ophelia has for centuries been the archetype for the mad woman, which Taylor Swift has previously written about. The trope of innocent female characters who are brought to madness by the system that works against them. Understanding this is very important because it wasn't merely Hamlet's desertion that led Ophelia to insanity and suicide. It was all that male authority over her very existence and identity that caused all that. Her brother lectured her on chastity and tried to control her. Her father, King Polonius, used her as a bait or as a pawn, and Hamlet himself tried to manipulate her. She only existed to fulfill various roles in relations to different men, sister, daughter, lover, and therefore her entire sense of self slowly disintegrated throughout the story. In relation to Taylor's previous work, it is a perfect persona for her to obtain in this point of her career, as she has been shamed, manipulated, and has lost control over her life before, and now, having gained this control back, is the perfect time for her to rewrite the ending of this classic tragedy. Taylor obviously understands the complexity of Shakespeare's story and portrays it visually in the music video. This time, Ophelia rises from the lake. I guess it was just a drag, you might say. Arises from her supposed doom, dances, sings, fights, and refuses to drown because, guess what, she has modern lifesavers. This time, the so-called mad woman simply saves herself, survives, and succeeds. However, all these commentaries are absent in the actual storytelling. Throughout the poem, the narrator only considers previous lovers to be at fault for her near insanity, and only praises her current lover for saving her from her presumed doom. No further societal comments are made here. After all these years from the writing of Love Story, I guess it is still the male character in Taylor's mind who has the agency to change the ending of Shakespeare's tragedies. It's so frustrating to see an archetype being recycled perfectly in a modern story, but not truly deconstructed. The deconstruction is left for the audience to do, which feels a little bit lazy and also morally flawed. A classic symbol of female suffrage is borrowed, but with no empathy for all the other Ophelias of the world who need someone to tell them that they can save themselves. Taylor Swift might have many reasons for choosing to keep the story on surface level. Maybe she wants to not offend any group of people with feminist ideologies. Maybe she wants to keep the meaning simple for the non-native English speakers so that the song goes completely viral. I don't know, but this is not my personal preference in art. The second song, Elizabeth Taylor, was again one of my favorites from the album. The glamour, the materialism, the picturesque luxury and loneliness depicted here are exactly what I wanted from this song. Of course, the poetry doesn't really reach the heights that it could, but still a great song. However, when you compare the themes of this song to the themes of Wishlist, that's when things really clash. The narrator has romanticized money and luxury in Elizabeth Taylor, mentioning the view of Portofino and Plaza Athénée and the fact that she really doesn't want to part with her Cartier. This is a brilliant complexity one expects when the showgirl is brought to life. The wealth is also mentioned a couple more times throughout the album. For example, when she says the people in her circle were Gucci and cancelled, or when she talks about her empire in Father Figure. So the theme is completely running throughout the entire album. Then we get to the song Wishlist, where we take a complete 180 and suddenly wealth is almost looked down upon. Yes, I agree that she states that she genuinely wishes people get every materialistic thing that they want in life. but there is an undeniable sarcastic tone about it, which is in such poor taste for a billionaire to take this approach. You can romanticize Portofino, you can envision your friends in Gucci, you can take control over your life because wealth allows you to do so. A storyteller cannot romanticize wealth throughout the entire story and suddenly contradict herself, try to show herself in some sort of moral superiority because she has no more materialistic needs in life. Don't get me wrong, there is no malintent there. It is just poor writing. Writing that does not convey messages as well as it should. Now I can go on and on about the writing on the album. In my opinion, there is much to be discussed about Eldest Daughter, Wood, and the title track. But I want to stay on my subject of morality and mention a few other problems I had in that regard. The song Ruin the Friendship was completely thematically irrelevant and felt like it belonged to some previous album's vault. And I personally could not get behind the logic of all the moral issues it had. I must admit, I considered it a weird, childish, and honestly egotistical sentiment to think you, quote unquote, kissing someone in adolescence would save them from their possible suicide. It's a very delicate matter, which again I'm certain was approached with zero malintent, but at the end of the day was poorly written. The song Actually Romantic was again, in my opinion, another wrong choice of subject matter. When you're at the height of your career, there is no need for these petty narratives that, as you yourself stated, only add to the societal apathy we are experiencing together. In that regards, she is once again contradicting herself. Honestly, this was so uninteresting and juvenile to me, this song, that I don't want to dwell on it anymore. The last song I want to mention is Cancelled. I believe this one, apart from poor poetry and very basic literary structure, also suffers from a wrong moral approach. The schoolgirl mindset shows itself once again. Loyalty to my friend and my personal experience with that person is more valuable to me than any malicious acts of theirs towards others. It is a very well known fact that it is morally wrong for someone to use their power, fame, or wealth to control another human being, whether it be a man or woman. This is not women empowerment or feministic to defend a woman's wrongdoings. It only harms women who actually want their truths to be heard. She could have taken the feministic approach when she had the concept of Ophelia at hand. The notion is very misplaced here. Thank you for listening to my many moral opinions. I believe these flaws added to the discourse and the division people seem to have over this album. It might seem nitpicking at points. I would very much like to read your opinions in the comments. Till next time.